Welcome everybody to the 2020 ArcGIS User Seminar. I'm Sarah Schrader and I'm an account manager for Esri from the Minneapolis office.
And hello there to everyone across the nation and the world. We're happy to have you here this morning. My name is Nicole Grahams. I'm a solution engineer from St. Louis, Missouri, and we are really excited to be your host today.
So this is a virtual version of our 2020 seminars, and the theme for these seminars is Amplify Your GIS, because it's all about doing your best work and positively impacting others in your organization and the public.
Now, what do we mean by amplify? So when we think about this word, we think about perhaps sound waves or a droplet hitting a surface of water and the ripple effect expanding outward. We want you to create that same ripple effect in your organization by using GIS as the raindrop.
And before we begin, we do have a few housekeeping items. Please note your line will be muted for the duration of the seminar because the seminar is being recording. The recording will be distributed in a few days along with a survey for you. And during the seminar, we will have a few poll questions for you and we encourage your participation. Lastly, if you have any questions during this presentation, please use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen and one of our helpful moderators will get back to you. Oh, and one other note, we do have closed captioning active today. There may be a chat transcript visible on the side panel for you.
Now, speaking of our moderators, let's take a moment to introduce them as well. Today, helping us out, we have Sarah Lynn Madrid, Adam Carnow, and Harry Moore. So as you're entering your questions and comments into the chat window, these helpful folks will be getting back to you. Now, our agenda, you'll see on the left-hand side of the slide, we're going to start out what is about a 2-hour webinar covering what's new across the ArcGIS platform. We'll take a pause about halfway through for some. And then in the second half, we'll cover ArcGIS in action, so workflows in these specific environments that you can implement quickly. And then we'll wrap it up with a call to action.
Now, before we get started, we'd like you to answer our first poll question so that we have a better idea of our audience today. Here is our first poll question.
Let me change that out, my bad. Try that one more time. Okay, we really want to know first what industry you work in. Wow, we're seeing those votes come in rapidly.
I love this. Everybody's awake, everybody's excited.
Now we know some of you may be in very different time zones than us. Sarah and I are in Central Time, but we appreciate all of you, whatever time of day, for joining us. Let's just give this about 15 more seconds. Looks like a diverse group on the line. It's great to see. Okay, and with that, I'm going to end the poll and share these results. It looks like the majority of our attendees are coming from state and local government, but we also have pretty large contingencies from federal government, consulting, education, and energy. So that is really exciting. Thank you all for joining us this morning.
Moving on, let's talk about our purpose for this event today. Esri is a user-driven company. We are defined by the problems that we help you solve. Simply put, we are here today to help inspire and inform you so that you can do your best work with our technology.
We know that right now the problems you are all solving for your job and also as individuals may look a little different than they did just 1 month ago. For example, how do I work effectively at home? How do I support my health department? How do I keep my family safe? So we really wanted to bring you this abbreviated webinar, both to provide some sense of normalcy for ourselves and for all of you, but also so that we have the opportunity to highlight our new offerings that can help you respond to the global pandemic. Now, with all of these things that are changing in our lives and our workplace, one thing that's not changing right now is Esri's product strategy. So this idea you see at the top of expanding the geospatial community has been really evident as I watch GIS departments liaise with health officials and emergency managers and create new collaborations that didn't exist before. And personally, I am really loving seeing the back office progress of deploying a solution using ArcGIS Pro, sharing it to the cloud with maps and apps for awareness and location analytics, and then making it available to the public via geo-enabled systems like Hub. Now more than ever, the Esri Geospatial Cloud is the reason that we are able to help you innovate and respond quickly. So our cloud-based platform is the reason that we can provide SaaS solutions that are services-based, distributed, and customizable to your organizations, not only SaaS, but also software. And this pertains to all organizations of all size, whether you're a volunteer, EMA, individual user, to a state agency, and even FEMA, the National Guard, and the World Health Organization. Now, I mentioned geo-enabled systems just a few moments ago, and these are our systems meant for niche audiences. So for those folks that maybe don't intend to have GIS in their title, if you've been working on COVID-19 response efforts, you have probably already seen a hub meant for constituent engagement. Or perhaps you've seen an infographic that could be launched in Business Analyst or Community Analyst. We also have systems like Indoors and Urban meant for space and urban planners. And coming soon, we have a product called ArcGIS Mission for situational awareness and collaboration. All of these systems can be deployed as standalone or integrated into your enterprise GIS.
Thanks, Nicole. So I think that's a lot of great context regarding our overall platform and our strategy moving forward. But now it's time to dig into the fun stuff, right? Let's talk about what's new in ArcGIS. Starting with ArcGIS Pro, because it's our go-to desktop product for 2D and 3D visualization and analysis. We've made many new updates, including interactive suitability modeling and parcel management tools, which we'll show you later. Also, what's new includes things like replication workflows in Python notebooks. And coming soon are items like animated symbols and GPS support. Now, with so many updates, really the best way to stay up to date is with the ArcGIS Pro roadmap document in the GeoNet community. It's actually updated by our Pro product team throughout the year, so that's going to be a great resource for you. Now, in addition to the updates made to the core Pro product, we've also made improvements to the ArcGIS Pro extensions. Many of you are already familiar with our commonly used extensions such as Spatial Analyst and 3D Analyst, but one new extension I'd like to call your attention to is called Locate XT. This extension works with unstructured data. So imagine taking geocoordinates, place names, and other important information from unstructured data and being able to add it directly to a map. Now that's powerful, and that's the Locate XT extension for Pro. All of these improvements should help make your workflows faster, and I want to mention we're continually making 3D a more integral part of your workflow and analysis because we want you to be able to ensure data quality, improve sharing options, and to be able to provide enhanced analysis. We're going to highlight some of these new capabilities in just a minute, but before we show you what these highlights look like in Pro, we have another poll question.
Let's launch this here. Are you using ArcGIS Pro? We'll just give about 20 more seconds this one since it's pretty straightforward, and we have a follow-up question to ask you based on your response. Okay, about 5 more seconds here. You guys are very speedy. Love that energy. Okay, I'll end this poll, and we'll see that a majority of folks on the line are using Pro today. So the next question we want to ask you is a follow-up. We want to see the reasons that you do or do not use ArcGIS Pro. And let me launch this and then make a quick clarification. So you'll see if you marked no, that there's an NA option for you in question 1 and an NA option if you marked yes in question 2. So we need you to respond to both of these questions before you can submit it. We'll give you a bit more time on this since there's a few more options to read through. What do you think, Sarah? About 15 more seconds?
Yeah, it's taking people a little bit more time with them. With this one, there's a few more options.
It looks like a lot of folks appreciate the ability to integrate with WebGIS directly from Pro. I have to say I agree with that. Okay, great. I'm going to end the poll here. And we can move along.
Excellent. Well, thank you everybody for participating. It really helps us better understand where everybody in the audience is at, so that when we're talking more about this, if we can highlight any other helpful information to help you, that helps us. So anyway, moving on. I previously talked about a lot of the great updates in Pro, and now Nicole is going to show you what they look like.
As soon as I share my screen. I'll get snappier as we go along, I promise. All right, so we're starting here on the Pro Startup screen, where you can choose a recent project that you've worked on, or start from scratch with a blank template that's either map or scene focused. I want to show you all something called a project template, because we found that our users could really improve how often they're leveraging these. So let me show you. You can choose a project template and share it with a group in your portal, perhaps GIS editors. And once you launch this template, this one is created for planning projects. It's going to do a few handy things for me. So as I take a look at my catalog window, I can see that the project template has already connected to my planning geodatabase that I need for this work. It's also imported the layout that's recommended for my work on a planning project, as well as all the recommended styles. So planning project, or rather templates, are a great way to get started with a project quickly. Now I have multiple instances of Pro open, and you'll notice that's no big deal. So now I want to talk about some efficient editing options that we have starting at Pro 2.5. I'm going to open up my attribute table and tell you a little bit about this data that's here. We're in the Naperville, Illinois Water Distribution Network. And let me zoom in so you can get a better idea of how this data looks. We have in red dots, those are fire hydrants, and they're connected by all the hydrant lines. So first of all, I want to show you a new option called Find and Replace. So from my attribute table, I can select the field of interest and choose Find and Replace. Let's say I'm looking for asset ID FH122. Now my attribute table will zoom right to that, and I can even iterate through all of the other records that contain that value, or search by all or part of the field. Another option for me is to do a complete replacement. So let's change the naming convention, for example, to HYD. And now I can replace all of those at once. This is a lot more efficient than adding a new field, having to do a text-based query or calculation, and then delete that old field. So we're seeing that my label is updated in the map automatically, and that is really handy. I love this improvement. Now let's make an edit to my water distribution network. You'll see I have the feature templates for various types of hydrants, and I also have a group template. This will enable me to create both the hydrant line, the service line, as well as the hydrant at the end. So you see both the line and the point drew in together. Now let's take a look at the attributes for this feature in particular. Over here on the right, let's call your attention to those in yellow. I see first that the asset ID was automatically populated as well as the label on the map, and also that the service territory north was automatically populated. This was done using what is called attribute rules, calculation rules to be specific. And attribute rules are run using Arcade. So many of you have seen Arcade across the platform, whether that's for calculating a field expression or creating a pop-up. In this case, Arcade is helping Pro do more work for us. And not only are there calculation tools, there are also constraint tools and validation rules. So we really love attribute rules that are getting more and more powerful with every release of Pro. Now, the other thing I'll note is this idea of contingent values. Looking at manufacturer, if my new hydrant was manufactured by the company Corey, I see that there are 2 nozzle diameters I could choose from. However, if it was made by American Darling, I see a much longer pick list. This is going to help our editors ensure data quality so that they're not entering a nozzle diameter value that's not pertinent to that particular manufacturer. And between these types of rules and calculations and find and replace, we're able to streamline some of our editing processes in Pro.
Great. So let's pause here to review what Nicole just highlighted for the editing options. First, she showed project templates. She highlighted find and replace, which is a huge time saver, using group templates, attribute rules, and finally contingent values. Next up, let's take a look at improvements with visualization in Pro.
Sure thing. So now I am looking at a map of crime incidents in Washington, D.C. You can notice that distinct size that we see of the district. That's a diamond. Wow, shapes are hard this morning. On the map, we see police service areas, that's the polygon, and then overlaying the crime incidents, we have a large number of points, about 30,000. So it's kind of hard to gather any sort of awareness about how crime is distributed across the district. And I could, of course, create a heat map, but I want to show you a different feature simplification technique called feature binning. So I'm going to turn the bins on for this layer, and we see some polygons render that are showing us the number of crime incidents occurring within each one. So darker hexagons represent more crimes and lighter represent fewer. You do need an enterprise geodatabase to create feature binning, and it's available at Pro 2.4. So as I zoom in, we see these bins are dynamic, and they're going to redraw for me at all different scales depending on my bin size and the scales that I've enabled. They also respect definition queries. So for example, if I want to look at burglaries, the bins will redraw, or theft from auto. Interesting. Now, if I zoom in all the way on my feature bins, eventually the distinct features will render. And I want to talk about some symbology options that we have. So starting at Pro 2.5, let's say I want to apply symbology from another layer. I know my colleague in the office next door is using some really cool symbols for the different types of crime based on their offense type. So let's change this to unique values and symbolize by offense. Okay, so we're seeing a pastel color palette. This might be appropriate for Easter, but it's not really as cool as that symbology that my colleague is using. So now I can use the tool Match Layer Symbology to a style, and I'm going to borrow that style and let that run and change all my symbols at once rather than having to choose them one at a time. That's quite handy. Now, I want to zoom back out to my full extent and get an understanding of how many crimes are occurring within each police service area. And with these crazy symbols, I'm still not getting an idea of that. So, one thing I could do would be to run a series of geoprocessing tools. And in fact, I've already done that. I can tell by looking at my history pane, which you can get to from the analysis ribbon and clicking on history. This is really useful because it keeps track of the geoprocessing tools that you've run in a session. And you can see the input parameters, environments, and any messages of success or warning based on what your output was. Now, if I want to understand the total sum of fences within every polygon, this is probably something I'd like to repeat on a regular interval. So I could select all of these tools in my history pane and add them to a model. Just like that, no more having to write down every input parameter and every tool you ran in a notebook. It's being tracked automatically for you, and then you can throw it right into a model. If you're a Python user, you could even send it right to the Python window or to a Python script. And speaking of Python, if that's the way you like to work, we now have Jupyter notebooks available in Pro 2.5. And if you're not familiar with Jupyter notebooks, they are a really handy environment that I've seen people use to onboard a new developer or teach a teammate about the type of analysis on a project that's already been done. You can see some really human readable coding or comments rather, and I can even run one step at a time rather than having to comment out large parts of my script. I could embed different steps within my analysis and see the map output as well. So Jupyter Notebooks can be shared as items within your portal environment or your ArcGIS Online, just like it that you create in Pro. So moving back to my map, I've actually already done this analysis, and I now want to symbolize by different offense types per district. So one thing that our users have really been looking forward to coming into Pro is chart type symbology. And at 2.5, we have it. So I'm going to choose pie charts and add a few different offense types, perhaps um, that one, and burglary instead, and also theft, and then theft from other. Okay, I'm really liking how that looks. I could change my charts to be larger or smaller based on the total number of offenses within that district. I could also remove the leader lines. And furthermore, if I want to make it look a little bit more exciting, I could display those charts in 3D. So speaking of 3D, I've also embedded a crime scene in my Pro project. And this is showing me, kind of like the feature bins, darker areas and higher areas represent more crime counts within that district. And I can go week by week and see how these change over time. Now, as you're seeing this kind of stepwise animation, you might be thinking, how can I create this in a fluid video? And now in Pro, we've extended our animation framework so that you can do just that. Exaggerate your data and your vertical content and really tell a more comprehensive story using your data.
That's really impressive. I love the addition of charts in Pro. That's something we've heard a lot from our users over the last many years. Now, I have a question. When we're looking for temporal patterns, what type of visualizations options do we have available now in Pro?
Great question. We have a few new items here, and I'll go back to my crime incidents where I can create a chart. We have a calendar heat chart, and this is really handy if we're not ready to take our data and put it in 3D or an animation. I can just insert the incident date from my data, specify how I want to visualize it, and then see my crime counts by day of the week and hour of the day. And much like feature binning, this too respects definition queries. So if I go back to theft from auto, I can see there's a pretty stark pattern of high incidence between 8 and 10 a.m. on weekdays. So maybe that's when folks are going out to their car to go to work and finding that something has been stolen.
Yeah, that's never a good start to the day. I'm going to pause here to review. Nicole just showed a lot of different options for visualization, including feature binning, which is available starting at Pro 2.4 actually, but we've made improvements since then. Matching a layer to a style, this calendar heat chart for temporal patterns, adding tasks directly to a model. That's another great time saver. Utilizing Jupyter notebooks, having chart symbology such as pie charts in 3D, and then also creating a video of your maps and data. That's great. So next, I want to hear more about cartography options in Pro. So let's talk maps.
Ooh, that's my favorite. Okay, so I've gone back to my police service areas and their fun 3D pie charts. Now I'm ready to create a map. One thing that we have available now from the insert ribbon is the opportunity to import a layout. So you can import a layout that's been used somewhere else in your organization right from this drop down and even see a preview of how it will look once you activate it. I'm going to choose a special layout that we've created for the seminars and point my map frame to my DC map that I just made. That was instantaneous. I have a map product ready to share. And it was really easy too. So speaking of sharing, we have a few new options. You'll notice now that our printing options are built right into Pro and there's not a pop-out screen. So you don't have to worry though about this taking up your processing power. Printing does still run in the background. You can choose your options here, whether that's tiling for a large poster or securing a PDF, and it's all right here in Pro. Another option we have for sharing our cartographic work is the option from exporting to now share as an Adobe Illustrator file. So if you're like me, and when I worked for county government, I often shared my work with graphic designers, and graphic designers would always ask me for an AIX file type because they need vector-enabled data to work with. So if they're using the free Maps for Adobe Creative Cloud extension, we now have a file type that is available for you to export as and work with those types of users. So I have one more thing to show you on the topic of layouts, but I'm going to switch to a different one. I have this interesting map here of the Nile, and in Pro 2.5, we can now change the shape of graphic elements. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to add a few vertices here. So far, so good. And now I just want to change my text box to kind of go along my country boundaries so that it looks a little bit more professional and custom. And there we have it.
Wow. I got to say, with all of our updates to Pro, I think that one might be my favorite. Whew. So to review this last part of what Nicole just showed, a lot of different options. Keep in mind the side pane printing dialog, so it's not a separate window. We have the layout pull down and layout templates to more easily leverage those, and also that Adobe Illustrator and export options such as the AIX file format. A lot of options for you now in Pro 2.5. Here's another summary of some of what we just showed. Now, all of these updates are helpful, and even more are listed in that ArcGIS Pro roadmap document, which is again available in the GeoNet community. And because it's updated by the Pro product team, you're always going to find the latest and greatest information there, so make sure you check it out. Next, I'd like to talk about ArcGIS Online. Because like ArcGIS Pro is our go-to desktop product, ArcGIS Online is our go-to SaaS offering for your mapping and analysis. It's so commonly used that you and about 7 million users leverage ArcGIS Online, which is a lot, right? And together, you've created billions of maps. And there's even over 150,000 open data sets available from you and other sources. With ArcGIS Online, we've made many improvements, including a next generation map viewer that we'll show you in a little bit. And coming soon, we've heard your input and we listened. Coming soon to ArcGIS Online will be organization to organization collaboration, as well as regional hosting. Story maps are a part of the ArcGIS Online ecosystem, and they help you create compelling stories using maps and images, videos, and other content. Like ArcGIS Online, story maps are extremely popular, being used by both people with and without GIS in their title. And in fact, over 1 million story maps have been published so far, and about 3,000 new story maps are created on a daily basis. Our story maps are mobile optimized. We want to make sure it's easier for your audience to view your work, no matter the device they're working on. And story maps are really the next generation storytelling tool. The main improvements include being mobile optimized and easier to deploy. And I talked through some updates to ArcGIS Online already. Over the years, we've made many updates, improvements, but the map viewer has always stayed the same. Well, until now. Because Esri is a user-driven company, you have made requests for enhancements to the map viewer, and we listened to your input from across the globe. And now we have a map viewer beta edition. It's to help inspire experimentation and creativity and to provide an enhanced experience for map authoring. This beta viewer is available right now in ArcGIS Online, and we'll be bringing it to Enterprise in the future. Let's take a look now at Map Viewer Beta and the updates to story maps.
I'm here in my ArcGIS Online organization, and even though Map Viewer Beta is in beta, you can get used to it now. One option to access it is going to your app launcher and choosing Map Viewer Beta, or you can choose an existing piece of content. So I'm going to take this web map and click the ellipses and then open in Map Viewer Beta. Let me make a quick few changes before I get started. You're going to see right away that this map looks quite different than what you're used to. So on the left-hand side, we're seeing all of our map focus options, so layers, base maps, bookmarks, and legends. And on the right-hand side of the screen, we're seeing all of the tools that are pertinent to the actual data that you add to your map. Now, I'll note Map Viewer Beta does not have analysis tools yet, and there are limited editing capabilities. So if you want to keep trying those functions, you're going to have to keep using the traditional Map Viewer experience. Now, I want to add a bit of data and do a little example here that you could recreate at home on your own. I'm going to add some content from my organization. And this layer, Popular Demographics, is available in the Living Atlas, so you can use it too. It is showing the estimated annual growth rate of population by county from 2018 to 2023 as predicted by Esri's demographic team, and using census data, of course. Now, that layer loaded rather quickly onto the map, but I'll show you just exactly how snappy the Map Viewer Beta is. I can change this transparency and we see it respond instantaneously. I hope you can get that through the webinar, how fast it is. Now, let me change my base map to something I know will highlight my data more as I continue working with it. And I really like the dark gray canvas for that. Now, I want to change my symbology and represent my data by a specific field. In this case, how about total population? You'll notice I was able to search for that field, and that's really helpful when we have so many demographic variables in data sets like this one. Now, Smart Mapping has selected the counts and amount symbology for me, which is nice. I appreciate it, Smart Mapping, but I actually want to show you guys dot density. This is a symbology option you have in Map Viewer Beta, and it's showing us the number of people living in each county as represented by the number of dots that are in it. So if I opened up my legend, I can see at this scale, one dot is currently representing 2,500 people living in that county. So in metropolitan Chicago, it looks like some counties are almost opaque. There are so many dots there. Now, zooming into my home a little bit more, as I zoom in, notice the legend and how it's totally dynamic, our dot density symbology. So now one dot equals 625 people, and fewer as I zoom in all the way. So that's a really fun symbology option for you to try on your own as well. Now, I want to change my style again, so I'm going to replace it by the growth rate. Again, it's so nice that I can just search and replace by what I need. This time, Smart Mapping has selected a color ramp that's one of over 300 color ramps available in Map Viewer Beta. We have color ramps meant for visually impaired folks, and we also have Smart Mapping also considers what kind of base map you're using. So this one is meant to be used on dark backgrounds. It's really cool. Now, I'm seeing here that the higher growth rates are represented by this really bright turquoise color, and lower or even negative growth rates are represented by our very dark navy color. But it would be easier for me to understand this if I created a filter expression. So let's look at the growth rate that's at least 2%. Wow, it filtered all of the counties across the United States so quickly. And I'm seeing some interesting patterns. We're going to expect high growth rates over the next 3 years in some areas you might expect, like metropolitan Dallas and Houston, Denver, or Salt Lake City, also here along the southeast coast. But I wonder what's going on that's driving such a high growth rate in North Dakota. Now, I know that a 2% growth rate in somewhere more rural, like here or Northwest Arkansas, might be a very different number of folks actually moving there compared to a 2% growth rate in, say, San Antonio. So let me create a new expression to add to my style. And I'm going to do this using Arcade. I'm going to subtract the future year population, so 2023. I'm going to subtract the 2018 population from it. And now my smart mapping has combined my expression with the growth rate, and we're seeing the larger dots represent higher number of people moving into that area, and the smaller dots represent fewer number of people moving into that area. But still, the highest growth rates are in our bright turquoise color that are up and over 2.5% in this case. Now, that's a pretty interesting map. And one more thing that I want to do is create a pop-up. How about Oklahoma City? I used to live there. So pop-ups have long been a cornerstone of great maps. And here it's traditionally been a selection of options. Do you want to look at attributes? Do you want to look at a custom display? But now we're encouraging you to mix and match content in any order to your heart's desire. So I'm going to add a little text-based story using some of the fields that I calculated with my first attribute expression, or my first arcade expression rather. And we see that the pop-up has automatically updated. I didn't have to click OK, save, save. It's right there, so you can see your work immediately. So I think I'm done with this web map for now. Let me give it a quick save, and I'm going to go over to ArcGIS Story Maps, which Sarah mentioned we have a relatively new builder experience that I'm going to show you now.
Excellent. So while Nicole is building a story map, I want to mention a couple things. The Story Maps team at Esri introduced this new experience, the Story Map Builder, and this is really a giant leap forward. We built it using the ArcGIS API for JavaScript, so it's fast, intuitive, and flexible. Once again, we took a mobile-first approach because the builder needs to be designed with mobile in mind to be very responsive to any audience. I have to mention this auto saves your work. I know that's going to be important to everybody. And I'd also like to mention that even with all of these improvements, all of the classic story map templates that you know and love are still available. We want you to leverage and make use of these new features in this new builder experience, but just know those classic templates are still available. So have fun. So while Nicole is finishing up this story map template, you can see she quickly added that map that she just created and some text and graphics. Looks pretty good. Let's check out a finished product. Excellent. So looks very similar to the story map that Nicole was just highlighting. You'll see text, images, graphics, and when Nicole pauses here, we're highlighting something new. It's called a sidecar. There's a narrative element on the right-hand side in a sidecar, and as Nicole scrolls through it, you can see that the media panel on the left updates as well. What a great experience for your audience, right? And as we move further down in the story map, we can see more images and text and common items like charts and graphs. But we want to highlight another new option called a slideshow. When you activate the slideshow, the media fills the entire screen, and then the narrative panels float on top, and it steps the user through your story with maps and text automatically changing. Once again, this is a great option for your audience. So moving forward, and to summarize all of these updates and highlights that we're showing, we wanted to show you the new map viewer beta and show you that it's fast and exciting and not scary. So many of you have already kicked the tires of the beta version and provided us feedback, so we thank you. And for those of you who have not tried it yet, we encourage you to try it today and then continue providing feedback on this and other alpha or beta applications through our early adopter program. We really value your input because we work to develop the future of GIS for you. Now, next up, let's switch gears and let's talk about solution templates.
Did you know we have over 300 solution templates that are ready to be configured for your organization? These solution templates are developed by our team, and they're meant to help you get started with a workflow that is repeatable very quickly. And they'll help you deploy maps, surveys, apps, dashboards, and it's a way for you to go from 0 to 60 without too much work. They're completely supported by our tech support program, and they're free and open source. So that we really are having fun creating more solution templates with our customers as we discover what kind of workflows are most needed across multiple types of organizations. We do have a solution for coronavirus response. Our solution teams developed these very rapidly, and it's a great example of Esri's mission to support customers both in their daily workflows and also in their times of highest need. We have a business continuity solution to track status, work location, and health of employees as well. And we also have a hub template that's free for all hub users. And we also have Esri's hub where we're compiling all the examples of the great work that our customers are doing. So you can check out our hub site to get ideas for maybe your own. Now, if you need more help, Esri's disaster response program is poised and ready to help organizations get up and running, even if you've never had ArcGIS Online before. And the disaster response program, or DRP, will help you deploy any or just one part of these solutions or the whole thing. The DRP has fielded over 2,700 requests for COVID-19 response, and our prior highest number of requests in a year was just 500. So that is really impressive how many requests we've seen come in and how many users we've been able to work with. So let's get started and take a look at just how some of these solutions look. I'm here at solutions.arcgis.com, where you can search for the industry that best represents yours, or you can get creative and explore them all. You can search by a certain key term of the type of solution that you're looking for, and we even have a link to get quickly to our coronavirus pandemic solutions that I've opened here. So I mentioned the response solution and also the business continuity solution. Let's take a closer look at what is included in the response solution. Right now, it is supported for ArcGIS Online, and we anticipate that hosting will be available for enterprise in the coming weeks. With it, you get so many different applications to monitor community impact, to monitor cases, also the different types of facilities that are open and closed, and where you can get tests and meals. It's very comprehensive, and easy to get started with once you deploy it in your organization. So you may be asking, how can I do that? You start with the ArcGIS Solutions Deployment tool. It's a free add-in into Pro, and it allows you to browse a catalog of ArcGIS solutions, and then you deploy them right into your organization. So it's a quick download, a double click of an executable, and you are ready to go.
Excellent. Thanks, Nicole. So she just showed you some of the examples of the many solution templates that we have, and also showed you how to deployment with that free add-in for Pro called a Solution Deployment Tool. We'd like to pause now for another poll question for you.
I'm going to change that poll real quickly. Okay, we'd like to know if you have ever deployed a solution template before. And if you have, which industry was it in? There's a none option at the bottom if solution templates are new to you, and that's okay. Now you know where to find them. It's really fun to watch how many people are responding out of the total number on the line and how quickly those roll in.
Mm-hmm.
Let's give it about 10 more seconds. Actually, I think we've slowed down enough. Great, let's share these results. We see a lot of you are going to be ready to go deploy a solution for the first time after our webinar, but we've seen many folks on the line use local government solutions, nearly a quarter of you, and about equal amounts of water and emergency management solutions, the few in all the others. That's really interesting.
Thank you for participating, and remember, when you're ready to check out one or more solutions, head to solutions.arcgis.com. So let's continue moving forward with this second half of the seminar. We call it ArcGIS in Action. It's all about how GIS is being used to support actual workflows. And today we're going to be highlighting GIS being used to amplify workflows in 4 key areas: law enforcement, public works, engineering, and land records, starting with law enforcement.
So today our goal is to show you how to geo-enable your crime data using the free crime analysis toolbar in ArcGIS Pro. Now, I have been both a municipal crime analyst and also a 911 GIS analyst for a county, so I can definitely speak to the intricacies of exporting your data from a CAD or RMS system, cleansing it, QA/QCing it, geocoding it before you can even bring it into GIS to do the most basic of analyses. And we know that in public safety, time is of the essence. So I'm going to start showing you this workflow and talk about how we can get that data in a little bit more efficiently. I'm here in Pro 2.5 again, and I'm looking at Rochester, New York, and I have about 35,000 crimes that are loaded onto my map. So I'm going to be focusing on the crime analysis toolbar and all that it can do for those folks that work in public safety roles. Now, let's say I'm a crime analyst, and every month I get a spreadsheet that looks like this. All of the crimes that have come out of the RMS. They have a unique case number, they have some date fields, and they also have a latitude and longitude. There's about 700 crimes in total here. So what am I to do with this spreadsheet? Using the data management tools in ArcGIS Pro and the crime analysis toolbar, I can streamline the process of getting this tabular data into GIS. So first, let me zoom in a bit further to a specific neighborhood called the Maplewood Historic District. And let's look at the crimes we have up until that latest spreadsheet was received by my office. So that spreadsheet of data was from October 2019, and everything that I have in my hosted feature layer represents the crimes that occurred for 3 years leading up to October 2019. So that equals, oh, I misspoke, about 24,000 crimes, almost 25,000. So let's keep an eye on that number as I go through the process of appending my new crimes from the spreadsheet into my feature layer. To do that, I'm going to first use the Setup Import tool, and I know that I have XY available in my data. This is a step you only have to do one time. You're going to create a configuration file. And this file will be something that you reference over and over. So the source table is the data that I showed you in my Excel spreadsheet. So I would navigate to that. And the target features are these RPD crimes that you're seeing here in my map. That's the feature layer that I want to append the 700 new crimes to. Now, since it's a hosted feature layer in ArcGIS Online, I need to authenticate with my username and password. And then also for future analyses, I need to make sure to include my unique record ID field, which field represents date, and also the X and Y coordinate fields. So I've done this already once, and now I'm going to use it to import records. So that juxtaposition is kind of funny of these two tools. The first one's quite complex, but you only need once. The second one's quite easy. You just point to your configuration file. And as long as your spreadsheet export is living in the same place on your machine or your file share, your configuration file will continue to function. So I'm going to let that run. And the config file is pointing my import records tool back to my spreadsheet. It's finding all of the new crimes, making sure there are no duplicates based on their case number, appending them into my existing data set, and then sending those edited features 100 at a time. So this is just one aspect of the crime analysis toolbar. And let me quickly refresh my map and also my attribute table. I see that it looks like 700 crimes have indeed been added. But I want to use another tool to make sure. So I'm going to select by date and time. Essentially what I'm doing here is creating an attribute query. But the point of the crime analysis toolbar is to lower the barrier of entry to folks who might not be used to working in a complex GIS tool like Pro. So making this checkbox type of interface for a crime analyst could make their job a little bit easier. And so we see our selected features in the map. And let me just double check my attribute table and make sure, oh, yep, it's about 700 that were selected. Perfect. So now I want to zoom in further and take a look at an interesting pattern happening on Albemarle Street. Leading up to October 2019, we had 2 incidents of larceny at these homes. And then in the past single month, October 2019, there were 2 more incidents of burglary and larceny at these neighboring households. So this leads me to wonder, as a crime analyst, if there's a particular vulnerability about this area or a particular time of day that they might be susceptible to a perpetrator creating crimes at these homes. One thing I can do as I'm thinking about these questions is enable more time-enabled charts, such as the data clock. I already showed you the calendar heat chart in my Pro demo. This is a similar idea where I specify the date field, and now my data clock is going to show me the breakdown of crime counts by years as the concentric ring, so 2017, 2018, 2019, and months as the pie slices. I'm seeing a pretty stark pattern that there was the highest number of crimes in July and August over all 3 years. So that's leading me to wonder if perhaps there's a juvenile offender problem in this city when kids are out of school and getting into trouble. That's just one question that I could ask using some of my time-enabled charts. But the crime analysis toolbar encourages me to do much more. I have sections for tactical and strategic analysis tools and also investigative analysis. So this toolbar was created with our public safety team, many of whom have industry expertise in fire, police, EMS, and so we're hoping that this toolbar is really tailored to the highest needs of crime analysts, users that we have out there. Now, I've made my data update. I've done a little bit of exploration of the data, but let's say I'm ready to share it out to a web map. Now, this web map is the same that you saw in Pro, and I even have the same bookmarks set up. So moving into Albemarle Street, I see that same pattern. And it's really nice that I'm using a web-hosted layer so that my edits persist across the entire platform. And I didn't have to do any updated sharing into the cloud. It's just available for me once I make that edit. Now, my, let's say, lieutenant of the Fusion Center or captain may not really care how I get the data into Pro as long as it's up to date. Those types of command staff care more about high-level operational situational awareness. And for that, we can import a map into a dashboard.
Exactly. Dashboards like this are a helpful resource, and command staff loves them because they can get a high-level overview and they can explore the data without any prior training. I should note that the data we're seeing in this dashboard comes from the city of Philadelphia, but it's for demonstration purposes only. Now, about these dashboards, they can be used when briefing teams as well as stakeholders and other staff such as command and supervisors. You can see that as Nicole clicks different categories, she can filter data by, say, the day of the week or even the time of the day. And when filtering the information, you'll notice the rest of the aspects of the dashboard, the charts and the maps and the lists, filter automatically. This is a quick way to view important information and filter it for the user. It's really a helpful user experience for anyone in law enforcement. So we highlighted quite a bit of features and information for law enforcement. And of course, beyond what we've just shown you, there is so much more that ArcGIS can do to support your law enforcement staff. Many of these workflows on this slide have out-of-the-box solutions already existing that you can stand up quickly with minimal customization. And here on this slide are just some of those solutions available. Of course, you could check out the full set at solutions.arcgis.com. We wanted to highlight some of these other examples of how you can provide law enforcement with one platform, being ArcGIS, that can support multiple missions. And then to summarize, the technology that we showed and used today, we are using ArcGIS Pro 2.5 in the crime analysis toolbar to import and update our crime data. We also automated the geoprocessing tool and viewed that crime data in a web map and an operations dashboard. Next up, I want to talk about public works. Well, because potholes. Potholes, so many potholes. It doesn't matter where you live. I'm pretty sure you've come across at least one or more of these. Street infrastructure is critical to the operation of any community, and it's typically the Public Works Department who's tasked with making sure that roads stay in good condition. Staff needs to plan for the long-term maintenance and also be proactive in order to avoid costly repairs or replacement. And there's so many individual workflows and staff roles involved in managing these road conditions. So today, we'd like to talk about ways we can improve these workflows using ArcGIS. But first, I'd like to talk about some of those different staff roles involved in these workflows. Starting with the field crews, because public works doesn't function without their field crews. Field crews generally spend their time performing inspections and overseeing repair work. They're the ones who get to fill out lots of pavement condition forms and then turn them over to their supervisor. Well, in our experience, it's pretty common for pavement condition forms to be paper-based in a more manual process, so that inspection process can take a lot of time. Next, the supervisor at Public Works is essentially the chief operations officer for the department. They'll report to the Public Works director, but they also engage with the city manager, the mayor, and many times city council members. Now, they might not work in the field, but they do need quick and easy access to the field information and those reports coming from their staff in order to understand the status of work being done and where more work needs to be done in the future. Now, since it's common for these inspections to be a manual and paper-based process, It could take a long time for the supervisor to summarize all of those reports. The supervisor really needs that information aggregated more easily so they can make the best decisions. Moving on to our GIS staff. Their role is critical to this process. Their role is to identify how best to support these individual workflows and separate staff roles. The GIS staff knows that the solution needs to be efficient, effective, and allow all staff to be viewing and editing against the same source of authoritative information. And now, because everything in this workflow is impacted by location, a geospatial approach is needed. Let's take a look at how field-based workflows can be improved by using ArcGIS, starting with what options do we have to collect information in the field?
I have a lot to show you, so let me start with this example of using ArcGIS Workforce. If you've never used it before, we have a map on the right-hand side and a queue of assignments, in this case, pothole reports on the left-hand side. And every single report represents an assignment that I need someone in the field to go take care of. So if I'm the public works supervisor, I may be the one acting as the dispatcher here in Workforce. I'm going to create an assignment for my subordinate to go out and perform a pavement condition index survey. It looks like Keith is on the clock, so I'll go ahead and assign it to him. He'll be starting at Public Works headquarters, as this is the first thing I want him to do tomorrow morning. So I can enter in the due date, an ID that may link back to an asset or other business system, and give Keith the information that he needs to get the job done when I want it to be done. So first thing tomorrow. Now, from Keith's iPad, he can view the assignments that have already been assigned to him, and he can acknowledge the new ones as they come in. So this one's critical. It will take the additional step to acknowledge its receipt. Now he's ready to get started. First, he can navigate himself over to this particular assignment. We'll go through that in a moment, but first we're going to go through an example of using Survey 123 for pavement condition index surveys. So this process is quite complicated. It's almost as much of a mouthful to say as it is to complete in the field. And if you can imagine folks doing this on a clipboard with multiple sheets of paper, it seems like that clipboard would get pretty heavy after just a few areas of road to inspect. So each of these sections is calculating a group score based on the ratings assigned by the field worker, and then all the scores are aggregated into one final PCI score. So we see that group 7 number was changing as my field worker was editing in what he is seeing in the field. And you can also attach a photo while you're conducting a survey. So let's take a photo of some really awful cracked pavement that needs immediate attention. And what's nice is that you can embed the PCI score, the date and time, or any other variables right there on that photo, which is going to make cataloging photos easier back in the office. Now, once this survey has been completed by the field worker, they can choose to send it now, and we'll have it back in Workforce to view. So now I'm in the traditional map viewer, looking at all of the potholes that have occurred in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I may want to think about how to get my field staff efficiently out as teams to all of these assignments that need to be done. So not just assigning one by one, but optimizing the routes that my field workers will take. So in this case, I have 5 teams. I'd like them to make no more than, let's see, 60 stops in a day and spend no more than 5 minutes per stop. So hopefully you can get this all done in an 8-hour workday, everyone. And I want to preview the number of credits that it will take me to run this analysis. It's about 50 cents worth. So if I'm going to be having my field crews driving regular routes, this is a really worthwhile tool for you to use. Now, the results are both sequential stops represented by the dots as well as the lines which represent the route that will be driven. And they can be exported into Navigator for ArcGIS. So let's say we had a delivery route or a swimming pool inspection route for health agencies, or in this case, Monday's pothole route. That sounds like an unfortunate Monday morning activity since we have 68 stops to go to. The field staff is going to navigate in the order of the stops sequentially, which was calculated by my Plan Routes tool in ArcGIS Online. And then they'll get turn-by-turn instructions in Navigator. So Navigator is really nice because it can be run offline, and you can also overlay your asset data. So that's not something you can do in a navigation tool like Google Maps. Now, as they reach each stop, they'll mark it as visited, and they can even turn on voice instructions to help them navigate. So all that said, there's still a public works supervisor who's receiving a lot of calls from perhaps city managers and media outlets asking about the pavement condition across the city. We've already mentioned dashboards a few times, but they remain an excellent tool to provide every type of person, whether they have GIS in their title or not, with high level awareness of an ongoing project. Now let's switch gears and talk about this video. We're seeing alligator cracks on the road, detected object detection from a camera that seems to be mounted on the front of the vehicle. And this brings the idea of GeoAI and machine learning to the forefront. How can my city get ahead of not just what potholes exist now, but what problems I'm going to have to work on over the next several months or years? We can use a process like this to calculate all of the cracks in the field that we're seeing. You know, as we alluded to with that last slide, just putting a GoPro on a garbage truck can be a really inventive way to gather all of this data, categorize those images, and then again, bring them back into a dashboard so we have a high-level understanding of where pavement condition needs to have some attention, where capital funds may need to be allocated, and what kind of work is coming down the pipeline for our public works department.
Wow, thank you, Nicole. She showed a lot in a short amount of time, and to summarize it as briefly as I can, she really showed how we can transform those paper-based and manual processes by leveraging location-based technology. And I wanted to show you this slide. There's a lot of information on here, but the point of this slide is that there are so many options to support the separate staff roles, from field crews to supervisors and everybody in between, as well as supporting each part of an overall workflow, starting with the planning process. We utilize Pro and Online to start planning the work, coordinating that field work using Workforce, of course, navigating folks to the right location in the most efficient manner using Navigator, and importantly, monitoring the work in real time using an operations dashboard. Now, there's a couple apps on here I wanted to call your attention to. One is Tracker for ArcGIS. It provides a way to see where your field workers are in real time. And then we also have ArcGIS Quick Capture, which lets you capture data as you travel at speed with a push of a big button. It's really specifically designed to support that at speed and rapid data collection workflows. If you're unfamiliar with any of these apps or products, make sure you connect with your Esri account team to learn more about these flexible solutions for the field. Okay, so we just showed you a lot of different apps and examples to support field workflows. And guess what? We have another poll question for you.
This time, let me bring it up. We want to know which mobile products you've used before or that you're using in real time. Even if you've just used it once, we count that. Wow, we've got a lot of collector users, lots of survey 1, 2, 3. It's kind of like watching a horse race as these two come in. Good, an excellent number of dashboard users as well.
Thank you everyone for such rapid response too. This is great.
Yeah, I think I'll end the polling there and show you the results. Looks like collector won by not quite a mile, but by a good bit. Great to see.
Excellent. Well, we're happy to see that so many of you have been leveraging a lot of the apps. Check them out. They're really helpful. And if you have additional questions, make sure you keep our moderators busy during the rest of the seminar. Meanwhile, we're going to move forward. And I want to summarize quickly the technology again that we talked about with this last section about supporting our public works workflows. We use ArcGIS Online and Portal, Workforce, Navigator, and Survey 123, as well as an operations dashboard. And you could even think about taking these workflows a step further by taking apps such as a dashboard and then creating an ArcGIS Hub initiative to highlight the work that your agency is doing to improve the street infrastructure. Switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about this photo because you probably recognize at least one of the two people in it, right? Seated on the right, or on the left, sorry, is Esri President Jack Dangerman. And this photo represents a huge partnership that was announced in 2017 between Esri and Autodesk. This partnership happened because both companies want to help our users do their best work. And why is that important? Well, it's important because of the need for both GIS and CAD when working in or supporting an engineering department. Engineering is a core service of any community, and it's vital that staff have the best tools to do their work. And I'm going to tell you why with these numbers. In 20 short years, it's estimated that the world's population will be 9 billion people, right? And 6 billion of those will be living in the cities. This means that to meet this demand in the US alone, we need to build 1,000 buildings per day and spend about $3 trillion per year to build the infrastructure. And this isn't even going to affect just buildings. Think of all the associated services and utilities that are going to be needed to support this kind of explosive growth. Departments such as engineering and others will play a vital role in planning for and responding to the needs around population growth. And in order to best support these efforts, we need to ensure that users have the tools available to be more accurate and efficient. So to do that, Autodesk and Esri is putting your data at the center. We're looking at ways to streamline the process for you to plan, design, build, and operate your assets. By putting your data at the center and allowing users to leverage the applications that they need to support their workflows, it won't matter if it's an Esri or Autodesk product. The data and information just needs to seamlessly flow between these platforms so that you can support your constituents with tools that make things easier, not harder. So what does this look like? We wanted to highlight some of the product integrations as they look today. One example is if your organization is using AutoCAD products, they can now access ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise. Meaning, if your organization is using Autodesk products, you no longer need to share a shapefile with engineers. Let me repeat that. You won't need to share a shapefile with engineers. Instead, you could give them the ability to view, edit, or publish data from within these Autodesk products. Another example is if you have users that leverage Autodesk Revit, or if they're building BIM data, you can now natively read Revit data in ArcGIS Pro and then share that Revit content in ArcGIS Online or Enterprise. Folks, this is transformational. These are important integrations that can transform your workflows. And now let's take a look and see how ArcGIS data can be leveraged in AutoCAD.
Sure thing. I'm here in AutoCAD 2020, and I've already opened a new project and loaded in some high-resolution ortho imagery. This is procured by the City of Cambridge, Massachusetts, and it makes a really background for the traffic pavement markings that I've also loaded in. So my goal today is to show you some very, very simplified workflows using the ArcGIS for AutoCAD free plugin. Now, a quick disclaimer, I may be a solution engineer at Esri, but I am not a civil engineer or structural engineer. That's not my training or background. So what I'm going to show you today is quite simplified. Just keep that in mind as I go through this demo. One of the big updates in the plugin is the ability to add data from a named user account. So you can see here that I'm logged in as myself in my ArcGIS Online organization, and I could also add a portal account or switch back and forth. This enables me to have access to the full spectrum of ArcGIS Online content within AutoCAD. So I could bring in living atlas data, items from my content, favorites, and groups. So you'll see those two favorites I already added, and now I'm getting ready to add some sewer infrastructure data to my project so that I can do a very quick little edit for you. Now that's drawing in. Okay, we're seeing some manholes come in. And I'm going to go back and just make sure to turn off my traffic pavement marking so that I don't get too confused. Now, when I worked in land records, a DWG like this layer right here is one that I would have had to run up to another floor with a flash drive to get from my friends over in the engineering department. But now using this plugin, you can host GIS data and engineering data in ArcGIS Online and access it in whatever tool you're most comfortable using. So let me zoom in to this area here. It looks like a new sewer lateral needs to be added. So humor me as I put one in that's going to be very accurate. You'll see my sarcasm here in a moment. So I'm drawing in that sewer line. Oh, right, that's exactly how it would be in real life, right? Great, I've entered it. And now looking at my plugin, again, I can use a tool that's familiar to GIS users, identify features. So when I'm ready to select that new lateral that I entered, I can even edit the attributes right here in AutoCAD. So rather than having to go ask the GIS department on the 8th floor, hey, can you put in that this new line is made of this with the diameter of that? The engineer can put it in on their own. Now I've applied those edits, but the synchronization process to actually push those edits up to the feature layer that is in here, you see those web feature layers, that's what I'm using. This is a manual process to synchronize. And that's because oftentimes engineers and drafters are scoping out the construction and engineering projects that are going to happen in the future. And we don't want to update authoritative GIS data until that's as built in the real environment. So now my super accurate lateral changes have been updated to the GIS and my hosted feature layer. I've opened this same map in Map Viewer Beta, where you can see that my new addition is also represented. And if you can imagine using this map for a field worker in the engineering department, they could bring it up on their mobile device like an iPad and also have access to the authoritative GIS data at the same time. They can also perform edits in the field using something like Collector. So let's say I have Collector on my iPad and I'm ready to add a new feature, perhaps a manhole that I just noticed isn't represented by my GIS data. I can put in all of the information here, such as what kind of cover type it has and materials. And this is a really nice opportunity for field workers in engineering, for engineers using AutoCAD to interact with data coming from the GIS department and sharing their own data so it goes both ways using the cloud instead of shapefiles on a flash drive. It's a really great opportunity, and we're hoping that you'll consider telling your engineering department about this great plugin as soon as you can.
Thanks, Nicole, for your expertise in engineering. But seriously, our point today was we really wanted to highlight the power of the plugin. And as Nicole talked about, just the ease in which people can view information between the platforms. That's the point to take away from today. It doesn't matter if you need to use Autodesk products or ArcGIS, we want them to work together seamlessly. What you're seeing on the slide here is another recap of the technology and specific versions that we use today. And lastly, remember that there is an option where you no longer have to share shapefiles with engineers. You can instead give them controlled access to your system of record. So moving on to our last department-focused workflows and discussion is land records. It's rarely a process that slows down, right? In a rapidly changing community, the GIS staff and local assessors are constantly on the hook to enter new deeds in a timely manner and to manage those changes in property assessments. In my community and maybe your own, I'm watching neighborhoods revitalize around a local brewery or a new international restaurant scene. Old homes are being renovated and new condominiums are being built, but as a community changes, what does this mean for the staff workload and how can we improve staff workflows? As GIS professionals, you could have a role in this process. So now we'd like to show you some ways to amplify your land records with ArcGIS.
I'm here in ArcGIS Pro again, and for this example, we're going to look at the tax parcel polygons from Sheboygan County, Wisconsin. So let's talk about a few things in this demo. First of all, why the parcel fabric, now available at Pro 2.4, can help you streamline your editing workflows. How at Pro 2.5, you can create custom parcel types that are especially powerful for capturing the special information in parcels like condominiums, subdivisions. And let's take a little bit further. Let's go to the edge and look at the idea of exploring plat maps in 3D. I'll start here with some editing workflows in a parcel fabric, including the parcel fabric creation process itself. At Pro 2.4, there are tasks that ship with the software, and tasks in general are a series of step-by-step tools that guide you through a workflow. So you can create your own tasks to share in your organization, or you can use the ones that ship with the software. At Pro 2.5, all you have to do is go to the Insert ribbon, and the ones that have come with the software are ready for you to open. In this case, I'm using some parcel fabric tasks. So you see on the right-hand panel here, I have a task that will help me upgrade an ArcMap parcel fabric or load data into an existing parcel fabric. I can do one step to set up the information model, or one task rather, and I also have a task for loading data. So I'm going to focus on that one and just give you a preview of how this would work. So here I have my base tax parcel polygons, but these are all encompassing right now. My Sheboygan County was trying to capture all different types of parcels in this one feature class. So that's my input data set. Now my target data set would be an empty parcel fabric that I would have created. So a feature class with no data in it so far. We have to do some field matching here. We know that this can be tedious or challenging, although extremely important. We have a lot of great partners that help with parcel fabric migration and creation as well. The next task, or the next step within the task rather, is enabling the parcel topology. Then the third step is to create parcel records. So joining in a record field, perhaps from your TAMA system. And then finally, building the parcel fabric polygons. So once I've completed that entire task, the whole result will look something like this. Ooh, a different symbology. Maybe this doesn't look that exciting, but I promise what's happening behind the scenes is what is really powerful. So once I've activated my parcel fabric layers, I can go into the parcels ribbon. And the first thing I'm going to do is show you how to create a record-based workflow. So I'll zoom in here to this area where I've received a deed that states that these two parcels should be merged. The first thing I need to do is capture that deed in a record. So this is the legal document number. I'm being asked to perform a merge. I'm doing it, the recorded date is today, and I've put in all of the other information stated by the deed and the plat map. So I create this record, and this doesn't instigate any change in my map right away, but all future edits that I do while this record is active up here on the upper left part of the map will be affiliated back to this particular record number. So let me show you, for example, this merge process. When I activate the merge tool, it automatically activates my selection tool as well. So these are the two parcels that the deed says I should merge. I'll put the resulting parcel number that was specified for me, and I put in all the other metadata as well. So once I click merge, we see that middle line go away and the resultant square footage along with the new parcel number included as well. Now that's a very simplified workflow, of course, but what's really important is what's happening behind the scenes using the parcel fabric. So when I turn on that feature class, I can see that my legal transaction was captured here. So I see the active record number 324324, and the type was a merge, etc. And if I turn on the historic tax lines, I see that the parcel lineage was maintained. And that is really powerful. So you don't have to capture historical notes about what your parcels once were in a very long text field, for example. That lineage is really a great aspect of using the parcel fabric. Now, let's say I had not done just one simple merge today, but I had completed multiple parcel edits throughout the course of the day. And now I'm going to have to update my annotation. So for those of you on the line who have worked with annotation, we know how tedious it can be to get just right. And we have a tool available in the parcels ribbon that will create our COGO updates automatically. So I've selected my tax lines, clicked update, and now the annotation was generated for me on the fly based on my new edit. That is a huge time saver, which I really appreciate. And now I want to switch gears and talk more about those custom parcel types that I alluded to before. So condos are the perfect example of a tax parcel that doesn't really represent a single family home. There are things about multi-story condominium buildings that are just inherently different than maybe some of these neighboring parcels here. So let's take a look at the plat map for this condo. It's pretty typical as I go page by page. I'm seeing these lot numbers which represent business units that are zoned for business rather, and then there's space in between is for commercial use. We're seeing a few things on each page, the level, as well as the lower and upper elevation of that level. If I go back to level A, I really enjoy that the lower elevation is the center of the earth. So this condo's rights go right to the core. I love that. So those are certain types of attribute fields I want to capture in my data. And we've done so using a custom parcel type for condos. So when I click on a specific unit, I'll get all of those that are stacked one by one. You can see that I've included the unit number, the floor number, as well as the lower and upper elevation and use, whether that's commercial or residential. Now I say stacked because these are actually pages of the plat map, one floor at a time. So if I turn on the range, you can see what I mean. Here's the first floor's plat map. Here's the second floor's. Here's the third. And when I turn on the condo lines, this can even get just a little bit confusing. So let's talk about taking those lower and upper elevation values and extruding them in a 3D scene. Now we're seeing each plat map's representation in a 3D view that looks almost like the building itself. We have the air rights in light blue extended above the building, the commercial space in dark blue, and all of that residential area in tan. I can use definition queries on this data and look at just the commercial space, for example. Now we have some free-floating units, just the residential, etc. And I can also enable the range here on my condo building and even look at perhaps a subset, say floors 3 through 7 of residential areas. That's pretty unique. Now, this seems really fun, but what could be really powerful is just even changing the symbology of my scene. So, for example, representing my condos by their assessed value. And now a building manager or an assessor can get a better understanding of the distribution of assessed value throughout this particular building.
Wow, that's really transformative what you're showing right there. We live in a 3D world, so let's visualize our data in the same way to make sure that we're gaining the best insights to help us make the best decisions. Now I said insights. I do want to show them something because local assessors, where do they normally live?
Spreadsheets.
Spreadsheets, right? Spreadsheets are a common part of a local assessor's workflow. And when you're looking at information in spreadsheets, it's usually not easy to find outliers or patterns in that information. So insert insights for ArcGIS. I'd like to step through a few options to highlight how within a few steps, no matter if you have GIS in your title or you're not a GIS person, you can leverage these tools to quickly identify any patterns or outliers in your data. What you're seeing here is an ArcGIS Insights workbook that I've already have created. I have some data layers on the left-hand side. It's pulling from my sales and CAMA spreadsheets, as well as my authoritative parcel data. I'd like to take a few moments to better understand some property sales information that I have access to, starting with location, right? Where are these property sales happening? So I'm going to take the location information from my property sales and I'm going to make a map. Let's look at this geographic pattern and see if I'm seeing any sort of patterns. Well, it's kind of hard to tell. I'm going to change the base map to something that I more prefer, being the light gray canvas. I think it helps my data pop. I see some clusters of points, but it's still a little bit difficult to understand any patterns. So I'm going to quickly change the symbology from a point type to a heat map. Okay, that's easier for me to understand where there's a higher number of property sales with the data that I'm working with. Now I'm curious, how many property sales am I looking at? Is this 10? Is this 20? Is this 2,000? From my sales data, I'm going to use my listing metric and take a look at the total number of property sales that I'm looking at. And in this case, I'm going to use a KPI chart that's simply going to summarize the number of points that I'm working with. In this case, 508. Great, I have a better understanding of what I'm working with and where these property sales are located. Next, I'd like to better understand the quality of the property sale. And there's a metric called sales ratio that I'll use for that. A sales ratio looks at the difference between the property value and the sale price of a property. If a property has a high value, but it was sold at a lower price, it's going to have a higher sales ratio, and it can be indicative of a foreclosed property. I do have a sales ratio metric in my sales data. I'm going to create a new card with a new chart, and this time, let's take a look at a box plot. A box plot is really helpful to identify any statistically significant outliers in my data. And as you can see by that top whisker in the box plot, I have a lot of property sales that have a high sales ratio. And if that is indicative of a foreclosure, I need to dig a little bit deeper to understand my data. In order to do so, I'm going to enable cross filters on a few of these cards. And what that does is connect all of the information so that when I filter one card, such as filter out only the properties with high sales ratios, it will automatically update these other cards with the information. So really easily and quickly, I can see I have 30 properties I should be more concerned about, and then I see in my map the location of those property sales with high sales ratios. So in addition to temporal patterns and metrics regarding the sales ratio, I also want to understand if there's any temporal patterns regarding these property sales. Next, I'm going to take the year and the month information from the property sales and then create, once again, another chart. But this time, let's take a look at a heat chart. As you've seen Nicole demonstrate before, temporal patterns and metrics to measure them can be really helpful. In this case, the darker boxes are showing higher number of sales, lighter colored boxes are showing lesser number of sales. And because I really want to focus in on those properties with high sale ratio, I'm going to go back to my box plot, once again filter my cards, and wow, I can definitely see a temporal pattern emerging from May, June, and July in 2019. It looks like there is a higher number of property sales with high sales ratios. While I don't have time to fully complete my research here, within this time I wanted to highlight how easy it is for a GIS or non-GIS person to take tabular or authoritative parcel data in this case, view outliers and patterns in multiple different ways. Lastly, I want to show you every single step I went through was also tracked automatically in a model. And this is huge because in a local assessor's office, for an example, consistency is key. They want to make sure that the methodology being used across their team is consistent, and this model is one way to do so. One staff member can create the model and then share it with the rest of the team, and it can still include options to update the input data sets as needed, such as if a staff person is working with data from different years, for example. So with insights within a few clicks, I was able to get a wealth of information from my data that I definitely would not get from an Excel spreadsheet. So to summarize, Nicole highlighted quite a few different ways to efficiently manage parcels using ArcGIS Pro, and then I was able to talk about how insights for ArcGIS can really benefit assessors and other staff by identifying outliers and patterns in sales data. In this last whole section that was called ArcGIS in Action, we provided examples on how you can leverage ArcGIS capabilities to support many workflows in 4 key areas: law enforcement, public works, engineering, and land records. Now, even if your own role doesn't include supporting those specific departments, many of the workflows we highlighted today can be reconfigured to match your own needs.
Absolutely. And with that, it's time to wrap up our webinar. We have a few more resources that we want to share with you, though, before signing off for the day. And we've shown you so many different products and uses of those products in a short amount of time. I apologize by how quickly we tried to go through and get as many powerful things in as we could. But we want you to note and remember that technology alone is not always effective if you don't have a plan that's going to guide how you will implement it. And once you implement it, how are you going to derive capabilities? So this is what we call creating a geospatial strategy. And if you're daunted by where to start, this is a great read to help you aim high and maximize the capabilities that your GIS can provide. We will be sending out these links in a few days along with the recording, so if you don't have a chance to jot down every single link we're about to show you, we'll make sure that these are available to you quite soon. Now, said another way, success isn't determined just by the data you maintain and the technology that you have access to, but also by processes and people. So this document is another one of my favorites, the best practices for architecting the ArcGIS platform. We update it several times a year. The most recent update was last month. And I encourage you to go through this document and kind of make little mental check marks of which best practices your organization is doing a great job with and which best practices you could look at improving on. And remember, the keys to success is not just how much technology you have or how much great data pipelines you own, but also that you're training your staff and making your people successful as well.
And speaking of people, Esri doesn't just make software. We also have so many professional development resources created and available to you to meet your educational level as well as your learning style. So just some of them include a student use and personal at-home licenses that provide you affordable access to ArcGIS. We have unlimited e-learning through your annual software maintenance. We have books and blogs, podcasts, webinars, social media. We have a young professionals network. We have technical certification. And of course, the GeoNet community, which you should all be participating in.
Now we're going to take this theme of community and run with it for a bit. And earlier, Sarah alluded to the early adopter community as a way for you to try pre-release Esri technology. So not just those pieces of software that are in beta, but also alpha. We really value our users' opinions. And if you sign up to get involved in beta testing opportunities, we can take your experience and your feedback into consideration in our software design process.
Another community we want you to be aware of are the new Esri regional office hubs. So these regional communities are intended to connect you with your Esri account team as well as fellow users in your geographic area. There are two-way engagement platforms where, again, you can connect with your local Esri office, but also users to stay engaged, be informed, and be inspired. Make sure you visit these sites and sign up to follow so you receive updates about GIS events in your area, and there are even options for you to submit your regional and local events to be promoted through these sites. Now, on the call today, our audience represents many geographies across the US and across the globe. These two examples of the regional office hub sites you're seeing on the slide are the ones that represent Nicole's and my offices. If they don't represent your specific geography, you can go to any of these regional hub sites to find your own and sign up there.
Now, we want to just mention one more time the GeoNet community. It's such a great place to interact with other users and to find the answers to questions that perhaps other users have had as well. So this is a newly created GeoNet for community for those responding to the COVID-19 situation. It includes guidance and questions and content for how to use our newly released solutions. And those solutions, like any of our products, we really encourage you to come here and see what kind of answers and inspiration you can find to learn from your peers and other communities. Now, one more plug for those coronavirus response resources. We have the response solution, not pictured here, the business continuity solution, the hub template that is free for all users, and Esri's COVID-19 hub site, where we're bringing together all the resources from around the globe and showcasing them. So, on that topic of hub, we do have a few more poll questions for you. Let me go on to the next one. I bet that you can guess what it is. Have you deployed a hub site? Okay, about 5 more seconds to answer here. All right, I'm going to end the poll and share those results. It looks like we have a great opportunity for some of you on the line to get started with ArcGIS Hub. And for those 14% that have deployed one before, great work, and we would love to see the kind of hub sites that you've created. Excellent. Now, we just want to wrap it up by saying we know that our new short-term normal is kind of in flux and something unlike any of us have ever experienced before. And that may impact our long-term goals, no matter how focused we try to be in these new times and new environments. Mine, for example, is my basement. But I think there are going to be many decision makers as a result of this crisis for whom GIS was a foreign concept before 2020 that now recognize the importance of the work that the GIS community does. We are seeing so many workflows amplified by GIS through this pandemic. We're seeing agencies come together who have never collaborated before. People who've never used GIS technology, leveraging your data sets and apps, using both existing technologies and trying new ones through the DRP. And seeing this firsthand really brings me comfort about the days ahead of us.
And with that, we really want to thank you for joining us today from any time zone that you're in. We appreciate you taking time out of your extra busy day and schedule to participate. Feel free to spread the word about we have additional seminars taking place virtually next week. Keep in mind that since this webinar was recorded, in the next few days, you will be receiving an email with a link to this recorded webinar so you can use it for reference, because we know we went through a lot of great information in a short amount of time. Also, in late April, you'll receive another email with a link to the recorded version of the full in-person seminar content. And other than that, just thank you again, everybody. Have a great day and stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.